Um, Everything I have here today, I basically sat down and wanted to think of what moves the needle the most, different types of marketing. And there's a million ways to get leads, a million ways to get new business. But wanted to put together a presentation that we see moves everything basically the most. So that's what we're gonna be talking about. Try to keep it interactive. Would like some feedback and raise your hands, different things like that. So try to keep it as loose as possible. So we're going to be covering basically the problems that I see deck builders have, the most common problems, why marketing matters, and I'm going to show you some stats in case you're curious, what the actual numbers are behind this stuff. Big 5 for ranking in Google. It's something that I put together and created, just things that matter the most. We're going to get tactical with your Google listing, your website, things that really move the needle and do the best job for getting more leads. How you can talk about your location, where your location should be, how you can move it to get better results. The website, of course, we're going to talk about that too. We're going to talk about reviews and how to get better reviews, more reviews, and systems for that. And then the digital marketing hierarchy, timelines. We're going to talk about what to do when, in case you're curious there. All right, if you never heard of me, I'm Alex Danner. I'm the owner and founder of Fence and Deck Marketers. It's a digital marketing agency that only works with fencing and decking, outdoor living industries. Ever since we started the business 5 years or so ago, basically just wanted to provide good content. There's a lot of stuff we do, not just things like this, but online webinars. We have the podcast, best known Fence and Deck, Fence and Deck Mastery Podcast, the best known fence and deck contractor. We kind of cleaned out the books. There's probably a couple at the booth if you want one, but do a lot of speaking, Deck Expo, NADRA, stuff like that. A lot of education there. We're on the NADRA Education Committee and obviously partner with TimberTech for all the marketing stuff. All right, so the most common problems that I hear from contractors is the business isn't showing up online, or maybe just not high enough, the rankings aren't that good, not getting enough reviews. I think everybody can share in the misery of getting, trying to get enough reviews. Relying too heavily on referrals, that's a big one too. Not getting enough leads just overall, not getting the right leads. I hear that constantly, tire kickers, people that can't afford what you do basically. And then not sure which direction, based on what you're doing, where you want to go, which different options you should have. Does anybody resonate with any of those? Raise your hands. Yeah. Does that sound accurate? Just one? Okay. Yeah, so these are what we typically hear the most. And with digital marketing, if everyone came here, you probably already know it's important. You're already investing in it, I'm sure. Is everyone here who's doing SEO currently? Everyone? Okay, just about everyone. So 78% of construction companies say digital marketing increased project inquiries, so obviously it works. But SEO is what we're going to be dialing in a lot because it's where most of the people go. That's evident with 87% of people go to Google when they're looking for a deck builder, outdoor living provider. 87% of the time they're going to Google. AI is going crazy right now. Everybody's talking about it, but Google is easily the front winner, whatever that term is. Basically, AI is, you do need to pay attention to it. You do need to have your website updated for it, have a strategy for it. But Google is still easily the one that's completely dominating, and especially with commercial searches. So like AI is really good for, I'm sure we all use ChatGPT to search different things, but when somebody's like, hey, I need a deck builder and I need somebody to come out and look at my project, AI is gonna be outshined by Google by a very wide margin. And then 70% of people skip the ads. So is anybody running pay-per-click ads currently? Yep, Deccan I know, of course. Nobody else, just a couple, okay. So most people do skip them, they do work, but today I wanted to show what gets the most, I guess, bang for your buck, and that's gonna be on the SEO side. And then this is kind of the breakdown. So the top section here in red, 30% of people go to the ads. Google local services ads, they're not great for decking. They don't have a separate category for them. If you do fencing, they're excellent for that and other services, but for decking, they're not great. Usually not great, sometimes they're okay. But pay-per-click ads are generally the front runners for deck leads, and you really just have to have a significant budget to run them. So depending on what your goals are, what your revenue, expect to spend at least, 4 to 5,000, at least 3 when you're running those. But again, we're not going to be focusing on that as much. The big part of all this, and what I want to really show how you can adjust your marketing to get a really improve your marketing and improve your reach, is going to be this section here. So this is the organic section. You have to earn your way there. You can't just pay your way to the top like you can with the ads. You have this right here. It's called the map pack. I'm going to say that a million times today, so it's important to remember the map pack. That gets almost half of all the leads. So you absolutely have to be showing up here. And I'm going to show you how you can see where you're showing up, how you can move your location, how you can adjust that to go after the right locations and the right people that can afford what you want, not the tire kickers, basically. Map pack. Yeah, they call it like local pack, or there's other terms for it. But yeah, I go with map pack. But yeah, it's basically just the top 3 Google listings. The Google business profile, that's the top 3 that go there. And then this is going to be just purely the website results. Having good content on your website, how authoritative it is, all of those things. That's how you show up here. But since the emphasis is on SEO, the reason I do talk about that is because it's 70% of where people go. So most people do skip the ads. I said they are important, they do work well, but most people skip them, and you want to make sure this is in order before you move on to anything else, or at least, make sure that's the emphasis. Okay, so I sat down before I was making these presentations, and I wanted to think of like, what if I had to make a list of, if I could do anything, if it was my business, if I could do anything to make sure I followed a step to be the quickest way to get to the most rankings, most reach, most leads, I made a list and kind of made a priority list, and that's how I came up with this, the big 5. These are the top things that absolutely have to be dialed in order to get the most out of your marketing. I'm going to go through each one of these in detail, but the first one is going to be the business name. So is anybody here not primarily decks? Anybody, I'm assuming we're at a TimberTech conference, everyone's here is decks, okay. Anybody here not have decks in their name? So is anybody, okay, 3 there. Okay, so if you are decks and you've kind of made that commitment to being in the decking space, most of the time with our clients, we add DBA names to make that the focus. So a lot of times we might hear, we do, that's the focus, we want to be more deck heavy, but maybe you do basements in the off season or interior remodeling. You can still work with that. But instead of, as an example, if you're ABC Construction or ABC Contractors, renaming or adding a DBA, which is really cheap and really easy to do, rename to ABC Decks and Construction or ABC Decks and Home Solutions, something like that. That's a huge deal, because if you think about it, if somebody's like, hey, I'm about to build this $50,000 deck, I want to work with somebody that does decks. Obviously you guys are selling decks and there's ways to do that, but in general, if you're sitting there, you want to find somebody that, the customer that's going to pay for quality, somebody that will actually want somebody done right, not just the cheapest cost. They're likely going to want that person that's as specialized as possible. So what we've found is when you commit to that and you have decks in the name, ABC Deck Builders, whatever, that helps in that regard because you're showing that commitment to that industry. But just as important is going to be how Google treats you, because Google will rank you higher if you have that keyword in the name versus if you don't. So as soon as you name from ABC Construction to ABC Decks and Construction or whatever, just having deck in the name, you're immediately going to rank higher just because of that fact. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword there. You're going to have a better response from people, but also rank higher because you have that name change. And then the rest of these I'm going to go into a little bit more, but I would challenge you to think about that. I know everybody's business is different, but if you do add that name in there, it will have a positive effect, related to decks. Okay, so how do you stack up? Is anybody here like Google themselves or just say deck builder near me and just see how they rank? Anybody doing that? Okay, most of you, perfect. I think everybody. You definitely need to be doing that. I always say best known is going to be best every time. So if you're winning every single Nadra award and you're the most accomplished deck builder in terms of things like that, or you've been doing it for 50 years, yes, that's great, and you're going to be able to keep those projects going. But absolutely, if you get somebody that's younger, that understands marketing, that has a better website, takes good images, they can come in and absolutely look better than you just because they know how to look better online, and they're going to pick that person over probably the person they should. Maybe they should pick the person that has the 50 years of experience, but they won't because it just doesn't look as good to them, and they're going to have the upper hand in that regard. So you want to look at your competition and know exactly how you look in comparison to them, because they could be outshining you and taking your leads, and good chance they're going to be at least thought of before you if you don't have these things taken care of. So look at your business, take a step back and give yourself an honest assessment to see how you look in comparison to your competition. Because if you see somebody that has way more reviews and they have a better website and it just more polished images, you can bet that they're getting the eyeballs from the homeowners that don't know about a deck builder, which is most people. Most people don't have a friend or family member that's one of you guys that they can call. They're kind of going from scratch. So that's how people are going to be looking. This is a good example. Is anybody from Maryland here? No? Okay, I'm waiting for this example for the guy to be sitting here, because I picked a random just search around where I live in Maryland. So I just typed in deck builder, Sykesville, Maryland. It's just a city that's kind of middle of the road in terms of homeowners. They have, the average household income's over 100 grand, but it's not a huge area or huge money area. But I want to show you how people will look and how they're going to dissect it so you can do the same thing for you and give yourself an assessment. So deck builders, Sykesville, Maryland, you got your ads, your map pack. That top one is an ad in the map pack, which you can do too. And then these are your website results. So just curious, if you look at the map pack there in the middle, what would draw your eye right from looking at that? If you're sitting there, you're like, hey, I want a new deck. I see these options here. What draws your eye from the map pack? Yep, pops up twice. Anything else? Stars. Pictures. Reviews. Yep. So you guys you're all nailing it. So Deck Soldier, yes, they're showing up twice. Even if they didn't, they're showing up with 309 reviews versus 1132. That is a very, very real situation that you will be facing in your own market if you have somebody that's completely overshadowing you. And it's always I've never seen it not be the case where somebody's dominating like that and they're not dominating in revenue too. It's pretty much always the case. I know you can grow, you can grow in other ways, but it's usually a common theme. If you have the most reviews, you're going to be doing pretty good on money, and you're going to be at these conferences, if you want to. So that's what people look at. But even more and past that is you have the reviews, but look how many times they show up too. So they're in the pay-per-click ads, they're showing up twice in the map pack, and then they show up in the website results. So that's 4 different times they're showing up versus the other guys are showing up 1 or 2 times. So what they're doing is buying real estate on Google. They're showing up as much as possible. They're looking the best, and they're showing up the most. And to give you a stat that is like ingrained in my mind ever since I saw it. There's a guy named Neil Patel. He's a big marketer, one of the biggest in the world. But he did this study that said if you're selling B2C, 10,000 or more, somebody has to see your business roughly 23 times before they do work with you. So it used to be like 7. It used to be basically nobody. Now 23 times. You got to really think about that. How often are people finding you? Before they reach out to you. So if you're just showing up in one area, yes, you can get leads. Of course you can, but you want to be thinking about that as it progresses, as people get bombarded with ads online, offline, how often you're showing up and staying top of mind for when that time comes, because you want to be in the back of their mind no matter what. So when they're like, hey, I'm ready to pull the trigger, I want somebody to come out, look at this, that's when they'll go to Google. But you want to be seen there before then, so that way they know, they're at least familiar with you before they have you come out. All right, so this is where it gets exciting, at least for me. I hope you guys will think it too. But location, location, location. Everyone's heard that. Who's using a commercial office? The deck guys are. Everyone, anybody a home address? Okay. So you can use either. Does anybody know if they're not showing their address on their Google listing? Is everyone doing that? All right, perfect. So the location, You need to be using a physical location. You need to show the address. If you're not, you got to get that verified. But it sounds like everyone here is, so we're good. But you need to be figuring out where you're located and how that is going to show up for those homeowners that you want to. So as an example, has anybody seen this report before? Yep. Okay. Anybody not seen it? Probably. Yeah. Okay. So it's something called Local Falcon. There's other companies that do it, but it's a really important report. This shows a simulation of the map pack. So if you remember, the map pack gets 45% of the leads, so almost half of the leads. This shows where you rank on the map pack in all of these areas. So when I ran this for a random business in Sykesville, their office is dead center there. So they're right in that center dot. The map pack is the top 3 results. So you want to be showing in the 3 as much as possible there. And when I see this, this report gives you an idea of where you're ranking and how good you're doing. And it usually gives you clarity and starts to like make sense why you're getting leads in certain areas. Usually when I show this report to somebody, they're like, oh, you know, the leads are coming from there, or we're getting all these leads in this spot because we're located in that area. So that will give you an idea to see if that's actually what you want, which it might not be. So when I look at this report, I know Maryland, you know, that's where I'm from. Sykesville is an okay area, but if you go down into Glenelg, you can kind of see it where the red starts at the bottom. That goes into Howard County, which is a much better area, and that's where all the big money is. And if they're sitting there and they want to go into Howard County, they're completely shut off in those areas. So they're basically, that means you're shut off of at least half of the leads in that entire area. So what we see work the best and what we do all the time is relocate people or add locations in new areas. So as an example, you know, if you're sitting in Sykesville, but you wanted to go to Howard County, you can get cheap office space or good office space. It just depends on your needs. But when we do it, it's typically, you know, $500 a month for like a cube, and you relocate into that new area, and then you just open yourselves up to that premier customer with the money that can spend and pay for what you're actually selling versus the lower tier person that might be more of a tire kicker. So when you look at a report like this, think about, are you in that area that you want to be? I mean, are you located where you actually want to be, or is there a better area that you could go to? Or, as I'll talk about here in a second, adding locations in other ones. So does anybody here feel like they're very centrally located for that top customer? Anybody, you guys are? Anybody feel like they're not? Like there's better customers? Everyone's feeling pretty good? Okay. So what I would recommend doing, look at something like this, use ChatGPT, find the demographics to see where those high household incomes are, use tools to see where people are searching, and then see if it's something you want to move or, you know, move over to a new location. So that's, I want to give you an example. This is just a client that we work with. They're here, they're just in the last session, but when we started working with them a while ago, they told me they were in kind of a remote household location. You know, they were at their house and there was like 2,000 people or 1,000, whatever it was, 1,000 people around their office. So I said, okay, where's the opportunity? Where are people going? He said his shop was in another area that had like 20, 30 times the people. So I said, great, let's move to that shop. Let's get verified. As soon as he did that, that opened him up to 30 times the amount of people that could afford what he was doing, plus better customers. And then that's when things started to really start to change. So he went, basically tripled the size of his business in about a year and a half just from that. You know, we redid the website, other things too. But the main driver behind that is moving that office location and get our better rankings. And this is a very common thing. It's something we see all the time. So even if you think you're in a good area, it might be the perfect spot, but you'll probably be surprised if you really think, look around, there might be a better area that could open the business up and you'll start getting more and better leads just from making a simple change like that. Okay, so if everyone's happy with where they are, you know, say you are in this perfect location, good, that's way better. If you're not, I personally think it's even better because that's opportunity, you know, you can move. But even if you moved, even if you're in the perfect location, you're not gonna rank forever from a Google listing, one Google listing. So eventually you're gonna hit a wall. You know, you're not gonna rank there all the way to this corner because there's too much competition in there. Everybody's got competition. So what you can do and something that works well is open up different locations in different areas. So right now, say that was the max. It's probably not, but just say that was as far away as he's going to rank here. You know, SEO and all that's perfect. And this is where they rank to. Say he wanted to go more in this Howard County area or down here, you know, Severn and all that, which are pretty good areas too. What you want to do and what you can do is get office space in those areas that are outside that basically link up two circles next to each other. So you're ranking in all those areas simultaneously. So you can get another Google listing. You can open up a new office in that other area. And then that's going to allow you to open yourselves up to half of the leads. Because if you remember, the map pack, 45, almost half of the leads go to the map pack. If you're sitting here and you know this is a good area, you just open yourself up to half of the leads in that area too, and you can literally do both of them. So this is something, I do this, do these audits all the time, pretty much nobody's doing, and it's something that's going to open your business up a lot. So, yeah. Yeah, you got to do that. That's what makes it tougher. So you got to be on top of it. You got to be on top of the reviews because you got to get them. I got a couple slides here to make that easier too. But yeah, it has to be a separate one. But that's what you want. It's, even though it's more work, that's also a good thing because not everybody's going to do it. That's why nobody's really doing it. But once you see that, it's kind of boils down to you're not really guessing anymore. If you know people need decks here, you can see how many people are searching it. You move into that area, you're not paying a whole lot for an office. You just are spending a little money for a really, really big result. And everyone here is getting leads. I'm sure everyone's getting from their Google listing and the power of that from one. Just imagine if you have multiple and you have them optimized, how much you can open up for very little, for minimal investment. All right, so once you have the Google listings, this is just kind of the checklist here. If you're a deck builder, which everyone here is, make sure that primary category is deck builder. That's a huge problem if it's like construction company or whatever the other ones are. From there, show the address. I think everyone said they're doing that. If you're not, that's a huge, huge issue too. At least 30 reviews, but be competitive. You want to make sure you have as many as possible. 30 is kind of like, when people start to feel warm and fuzzy about you, but really if you have somebody that's at 300, 30 is not going to cut it. You got to get to at least 100. Be competitive there. Respond to all the reviews. Don't get in arguments, with bad reviews. Add all your services. Add all the services as products too. You can do that as well. Make sure you're getting images. Is everyone here hiring photographers? Get pictures? Anybody? No? Not many? Okay. If you're not, yeah, you definitely should be doing that. A little hack here. If you're open 9 to 5, your competition's open 8 to 8, and somebody calls at 7 o'clock at night, they will rank you lower or Google will rank you lower even if your SEO is better. So it pays off to open your hours later, have a good voicemail at the very least. Ideally have an answering service that's open 24/7 to get leads whenever, but that's just something where you can get more leads pretty quick just by doing that. Okay, so the website, who feels pretty happy with their website? Good. You got to have a good website. It is the hub. I always like to say it's similar to the foundation of your deck. If somebody's calling you, everyone's probably gotten that lead where they're like, they want to replace their boards and just throw some new stuff on there, make it prettier, and you look it up and all the boards are all rotted, the stringers are a mess. You have to rebuild the whole deck. It's the same thing with the website. You don't want to do a ton of marketing if your website's a mess because it's not going to work as well, or you might just waste money. If you send it to a horrible website and you're doing billboards, all these things, they're going to get to your website and be like, what the heck is this? So make sure that website's done properly, and then we'll dive into some specifics on that. So the website, make sure it's mobile friendly. The name, address, and phone number is in the footer. Make sure the service pages, I'm going to talk about that here in a second. Don't have a service page or a page on the website that's not tailored for a specific service. So 700 words or more is what we typically like to do. City pages, sit down, think about what cities you need to be working or you want to work in, create a separate page for those. Premier Deck Builder in Sykesville, Maryland, Premier Deck Builder in Columbia, Maryland, have separate pages for those. Correct HTML structure, URL structure, that's more for a developer. That's really important. Custom images we were just talking about. About Us page, I'll show you some examples of that. Most people go to the About Us page to see, if it's who's behind the company. They're gonna wanna know who they're working with. And then make sure it's fast. If your website's slow, people are gonna drop off it. Google will rank it lower, so make sure that thing's quick. All right, so I would absolutely recommend taking a screenshot of this, because this is something that just about everybody is not doing correctly that I see. Some are doing a good job, but this right here shows the keyword volume on Google every month for each of these keywords. So a lot of times what I see is like you have a website that just has a services page and then it lists out all these services like decks, porches, patios, but they're not separating them based off the page. So when you have a page like, say, maybe you're doing louver pergolas or screened-in porches, if your competitor has a louver pergola page and you want those and you don't have one, Google will rank that page from the competitor higher, just because Google wants to show whatever's closest to the searcher. So if they see that page for louver pergolas, they're going to show them because they're like, hey, this thing is about louver pergolas. Also, they're going to convert better. If someone's like, hey, I want that, I want a screened-in porch, they want to see pictures of screened-in porches of that exact content. They want to see that on the website before they make that decision. So it's kind of a two-piece there. It ranks higher on Google, but also, if they want a louver pergola, they're not going to want to work with you if they go to a home page that's just talking about decks or whatever. They want to see that what's specific to them. And if you look at this, just how extreme this volume is for each of these keywords, this is for the whole US, but you can see just how diverse it gets and how much opportunity is. It's kind of like having more hooks in, if you're into fishing, like more lines in the water, more hooks out there. These are additional ways that you can bring people in and find your website and sell them from there. So absolutely take a really close look at this, see what pages you can create, and that's going to help you get more people to come in. Okay, so just a quick About Us page. If you don't show who the owner is, that's a big mistake. You want to show off who is behind the company, have team photos, pictures of who the team is. Just hire a photographer a day, or just get somebody that's savvy, take pictures of the team. That's going to go a long way if you're selling expensive outdoor living projects, which everybody is here. All right, reviews. Who loves reviews? Who loves getting them and loves getting them? What's that? The good ones? Yeah. Does anybody just hate the whole process? Like, just hates trying to get them? Yeah, usually it's the number one problem. I personally can't stand them. It's always an issue. And you guys are deck builders. You're not HVAC companies with a million service agreements. You literally will build a deck for a month and then need to get that review. And you don't have a million at bats. You got to make them count for the ones that you do have. So is anybody happy with how they get reviews? They feel pretty confident they're getting them consistently? Good? Okay, good. If you're not, there's a very clear, direct, I think I just said that. These sessions are starting to blend together. I can't remember what I say in each one, but there's a very direct correlation with more reviews, more money. So look at how many you have. I'm going to give you some ideas here in a second, but make it a priority. Do whatever you can to get more. And I always like to say, everybody here I'm sure uses Amazon. If I buy something for 20 bucks, I'm looking at reviews to see what people talk about, and then I don't buy from them if it's like a 4.2 out of 5. Imagine what they're going to do for a deck builder. If you have 4.2 out of 5, why is somebody going to drop 50 grand? And they might call you. They might. But in general, they're going to see that and be like, dude, I'm about to spend all this money for someone that has these bad reviews. It's going to hold them back at the very least. More likely, they're just not going to call if they have better competition out there. So with reviews, you need to have a plan. I'll give you kind of what I've seen work the best. This is something that will get more reviews if you follow it. Make sure the whole team is involved. But what I like to say to do is set the stage in the beginning. You made the sale. You're like, let's go. You want to basically say, hey, if we do a great job, would you be willing to leave a 5-star review? If you're thrilled, will you leave a 5-star review? They're going to say yes. At the end, when you're going through, the project coordinator, whoever is going through the final job, they're happy. Be like, hey, you said in the beginning if you left a 5-star review, you would leave a 5-star review if you did a great job. You know, would you be still willing to do that? If they say yes, you have to get the review right there. Like, do not let that go to the next day, the next week, the weekend. If you don't get it right there, the chances drop dramatically. So you want to do whatever you can to get it right there and just get them to leave it. And a great way to do that is probably my favorite is a Zappy card. It's like a thing you touch to their phone and it brings up the review screen. It looks kind of cool, makes you look high tech or whatever. Ask for the review that way, touch it on, be like, hey, do you mind leaving this? You can do it that way. You can do a QR code that will load that too. You can do a text, you can text it to them. But the next piece that I would not leave out, and one of my favorites, is like pulling on the heartstrings. So if you're trying to get a review, talk about the guys that are working on the job. Say that they're, and ideally give them a bonus for getting that review. Say if you leave this review, these guys get free lunch, they get a bonus, they get whatever, they get a 30-pack of beer, whatever, whatever you want to say. Tell them they get that. Ideally give it to them, give the guys the actual reward too. Not just say you're gonna do it. But from there, you have that. They're gonna feel for them. They're gonna assume all of you are rich and you have private planes, and every business owner just makes more money. They know what to do with, so they don't want to help you. They want to help everyone else. So you say that, and then another piece that's a real killer that should pretty much get a review every time. Have a stack of Amazon cards, $25, $50, $100. Be like, if you leave this review right now, our guys will get a bonus, and you get this Amazon card if you leave it right now. Most people are going to bite on that, leave the review, and then you save on the back end headache. Like who wants to text people and call them and all that stuff? You got to pay somebody to do all that. It's much cheaper to just get it right there, and then ideally you did a good job. They're going to be happy about it, so they're going to be most in the moment, what they like, things like that. Most excited. You'll probably get a better review. You can snap a picture of the deck and kind of move on. I cannot stand like going after the fact. People, it's attention span. They're not thinking about it not much longer after that. Were you raising your hand? Yeah. Oh, sorry. I saw a hand over there somewhere.
Is that not against Google policy?
Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, it's like they would. There's no way to get caught on that one. Like an email, that's a big thing. Like they call it review gating. If they can have a screenshot showing that you did that, then yeah. But like, how are they going to prove that you did it in person? That kind of thing. So yeah, it's not. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're just asking for the review. You're not saying, and what they don't want is like picking the review, like the 5-star, being like, hey, we leave a 5-star for that. Again, it's a little bit bending the rules, but yeah, there's no way to really get caught from it, at least that I've seen. So if you can get client testimonials, video production, and bring them out there and have that on the website, yeah, absolutely. But it won't, you need to have the reviews on the Google listing probably more. Yeah. But no, that's a great idea, 100%. Yeah, and you can turn that into Facebook ads, like start running that. I mean, if you can become like very heavy on marketing or video marketing, you can use that, save it, and use it in a million ways too. That's a great idea. Yep. And the last piece, you can train the team on this too. Get them excited. Say a client that's walking around here, they got enough reviews. He's sending them on a cruise. So like, and it's worth the money. I mean, if you're going from no reviews to a big amount, it's going to pay for that cruise pretty easily. So think about how you can get the team on board, get them passionate about it. It's going to make everybody much happier if you're doing well with reviews. This is just kind of a breakdown. There's a lot of ways to do things, but what we've seen work the best and what I would prioritize first is getting that Google listing, getting a website, always doing some kind of social media. Like even if you're just snapping pictures and posting, it's good to have kind of that, basically that backlog of posts. But once you have that, I think everybody here, you're not here unless you're doing something right. So probably best to just jump to a nice website. But typically in that range is when it makes more sense. You can afford it. But having a nice website looks better than competition. Having the SEO done right. Once you get 1 to 2 million Google ads, then become affordable. At least $3,000 a month is what you typically want to spend. So spending that amount is where you get into there. From there, Facebook ads. That's when they start to play in. Facebook ads are just more. They're lower quality leads, basically. Google is where people go when they want to find you. Facebook, you're kind of targeting them and staying after them. And then once you get 3 million, that's where social media tends to play a bigger piece. But it's always best to have social media done in-house. And that's why I say, like, once you get bigger, you can afford to have someone follow you around, get good content there, that kind of thing. All right, so this is what we covered. We're at time, but this is perfect, so you already know what we covered. I have a booth over there, but if anybody does want to talk, if you want to schedule something, I'll create something custom to you and basically go through your specific business, your goals, and give you a tailored plan. So you can reach out on the QR code. We can talk. I'll be here and at the bar or whatever. We'll see. Well, yeah, one session left, then I can do that. But I hope everyone got some value out of this and hope it was worth time, and appreciate you all coming.